Today we talk about a subject that is somber, the conflicts in post-colonial African states. And let us begin from the beginning, because the beginning was meant to be a good beginning. You are beginning from the standpoint that once you had eliminated the colonialists, then conflict would be a thing of the past. But the reality in a number of cases has been different. There are good stories, there are bad stories. The stories are bad, particularly when we recognize that in a number of countries, no sooner had they regained their independence than they found themselves in conflict. We know for a fact that as early as 1961, for example, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, no sooner had independence been gained within 6 months than there was a conflict which was of a political kind, which was in the minds of many, and history now confirmed this, was manufactured by external factors which pitted brother against brother, sister against sister, ostensibly on ideological ground, but was essentially designed to ensure that an environment was created in which resources could be taken. So that lays the basis for one of the reasons why we have conflicts in Africa: resource. And resources are critical. It is in the interests of external powers sometimes that you create conflicts so that you have access to resources. And we have seen, of course, in a number of countries that that has been the case. And these conflicts are then fueled through external factors, fueled by mercenaries, fueled by organizations which are externally based and which are externally funded, and whose agenda is to ensure that those countries remain in the spaces of conflict. The Democratic Republic of Congo, even as we talk today, finds ourselves in that space. We have also seen such kinds of conflict in the Sahelian region. In northern Mali, we have seen that in some parts of Burkina Faso, some parts of Niger, where insurgents are funded by external players with a view to ensuring that the conflict allows for the easy access and easy exploitation of resources. That has also been the case in Sahrawi and in Mauritania, and we know also that that has been the case in southern Cameroon and even in some places in Eastern Africa, where resources have been the target and they have been the cause of conflicts. It's important to pause for a moment now and to remind ourselves that as early as 1963, specifically in 1964, one of the arguments of the leaders at that time was that there was potential for conflict out of territorial claims. And that is why in Cairo, the Organization of African Unity came up with the doctrine of inviolability of inherited boundaries. They said, we inherited these boundaries from the colonizers. If we now want to change these boundaries, there would be great conflict. And the doctrine of the inviolability of inherited boundaries was meant to ensure that this did not happen. Unfortunately, we know that some of the wars that have been fought on the basis of territorial claims. A few examples. And when I talk about historical claims, it's a very highly sophisticated and nuanced. Look at, for example, Somalia. Somalia is a country whose nationals are distributed into different territories. They are to be found in what is in Somalia, with the capital in Mogadishu. They are to be found in Djibouti. They are to be found in Kenya. They are to be found in Ethiopia, in the Ogaden region. And we now know that those are one nation who were victimized through partition, because one part of Somalia, what is Somaliland, was conquered and colonized by the British. Another one was colonized by the Italians, Djibouti by the French. And at the point of independence, it is only Somaliland and Somalia that came together as one nation. But once again, until 1991, Somaliland drifted away and is trying to reassert its autonomy, and that is a source of conflict even as we speak. Another country that finds itself in that kind of territorial space is Ethiopia. And this is a very highly nuanced conflict because the Ethiopian situation is one that presents a nation which was never formally colonized, but which brings together many nations together, namely major nations such as the Tigray in Tigrinya, who speak Tigrinya, the Amhara, the Oromo, and of course the Somalis in Ogaden, but there are other 80 ethnic groups. And we know that in the early days, Eritrea, which was controlled by the Italians, was taken by the Ethiopian during the reign of Emperor Haile Selassie, and a bitter war was fought until Eritrea regained her independence. Territory, once again, is the issue. In Sudan, we know that when the Anglo-American, Anglo-Egyptian conglomerate decided to grant independence to the Sudanese in 1956, Sudan had been administered with what was described as the Arab North, with the more African South. And until the year 2011, there had been a bitter war, a bitter guerrilla war, a bitter independence war, and the situation is that ultimately the Republic of South Sudan was created once again as a result of territory. And even contemporarily, as we speak now, there is a bitter war going on in Sudan because there is contestation. In Darfur region, the Fur want to be a part of Sudan, but they think that they are being controlled, they are being Arabized by force. There are those in the IBA region, the Nuba Mountains and the Blue Nile. Once again, this is territorial which is inherited from the colonizers. In the western part of Africa, we know that there were parts of what is now called the Cameroon, when the Germans were forced to surrender their territories to the French, and on the eve of independence, there was an agreement for Cameroon to have a federation with those who are colonized by the French and those who are colonized by the British. And as we speak now, there is a war going on in that area with the southern Cameroon saying we want to be independent as Ambazonians, and they are talking about Ambazonia. We also know that in Angola, there is a quiet, silent conflict where the people in the Cabinda enclave also want to gain their independence because they are separate, they say they are separate and distinct from the Angolan people. And of course, in Namibia, we also know that there is another conflict which is now quiet, where there are people who are saying that we want to have our own Caprivi Strip. And in Zimbabwe, we are also aware that there is this continued fight, and there are those who say that we want to create our own country called Mutuakazi, which would be a Ndebele nation. So there are many conflicts that has come about which are informed by territorial claim. And the third major source of conflict is also ethnic contestation. We have seen this ethnic contestation where, for example, the Rwandese, who are described as the Banyamulenge in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, have been facing major wars and major conflicts because the successive governments of the Democratic Republic of Congo say they are Rwandese, yet that is their territory. It's a mix of territorial claim and ethnic conflict. We have also seen that such conflicts happen in different parts of Nigeria, where there was a major civil war in 1967, where the Igbo said that they did not feel that they were part of Nigeria, and a bitter war which saw the death of nearly 1 million people was fought, the Biafra War. And even as we speak now, there is still agitation by those who want to create a country called Biafra, and even within Nigeria you hear murmurs of people saying that we want to create the Oduduwa state, which will bring down South in Yoruba, and of course the Hausa Fulani in the north. All these things are conflicts which have come about fundamentally because of the partition of Africa. But there are other conflicts which are also contemporary, which are of a political kind. Quite a number of African politicians like to mobilize their population on the basis of ethnicity. And when they do so, we have political parties which are formed on the basis of ethnic affiliation. And we have seen conflicts in countries. Some of them are high intensity, some of them are low intensity. In Kenya, for example, it has become a culture that almost after every election there's some kind of conflict, which is informed by ethnic mobilization at the behest of the political class. This is something that happens, and which is a conflict which really debilitates a country's organization. We have also seen that in South Africa after 1994, when people are mobilized on the basis that they are Zulu. And this kind of, we have seen even the white South Africans, some of them say, we want our own state in the Western Cape. And all these are happening, and they are undermining African unity, and they are undermining the desire to create stability in these borders. In Libya, we now see the country is divided almost into three. And there are those who are saying we are Arab, there are those who are saying we are Tuaregs. In Mali is the same situation, where in the upper part of it, the Tuaregs want their own country. And of course, the southern people who are of the Bantu extraction also want their own, and the nomads, the Kushites in that area. Sometimes, as I've already indicated, the politicians also generate these conflicts. And we have seen a number of countries where there have been civil wars that have been fought on the basis of political contestation. The civil war in Angola that pitted UNITA, led by Jonas Malheiro Savimbi and Agostinho Neto, was one that was born out of politics merely because there were egos of politicians, and the whole idea was that we are going to fight to the death in order to ensure that we acquire political power. We have also seen conflicts which were designed to remove dictators out of power. That is the kind of conflict that saw the emergence of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in Uganda. We saw the departure of Idi Amin. We also saw the emergence of the guerrilla movement in Rwanda, which came about as a result of the Tutsi massacre. So African conflicts are multifaceted, are hydra-headed, and the time is now, under the aegis of the African Union, with the support of the regional bodies, to ensure that Africa asks the critical question, how do we bring a stop to these conflicts? And there are many ways in which this can be done diplomatically, so that people do not continue to suffer, so that we do not continue to have internally displaced persons and refugees. Conflicts must end.